Welcome to yet another episode of the Roker Rapport, and yet another absolutely miserable fallout from another absolutely miserable Sunderland performance. I'm joined today by some of the usual suspects, be it Tom, Callum and James. On a sombre note, before we begin, lads, I'd just like to propose a moment's silence for our friend Gav, who, overcome by apathy last night and self-loathing, finally took the handbrake off and willingly and quietly slid gently into the North Sea. R.I.P. Gav, gone but not forgotten, mate. So, Stoke last night. How was that? How do you feel, Tom? You look happy.
We said last week that we judge basically the season so far from how the Stoke game went, and I don't think there's another word to use other than pathetic. We were honestly absolutely pathetic for a lot of yesterday.
Yep.
Shambolic, pathetic. It's exhausting, really, a little bit, in all honesty, watching it, because we somehow managed to hype ourselves up come Thursday, Friday, and think, oh, well, comments in the press say that we're doing well in training, and Moyes is thinks we're on the up, and we think, oh, go on then, we'll give him another game, and if he does well after this game, then I tell you what, maybe we've turned the season around. And for the last 3 weeks of Premier League games, we've somehow bred this delusion that everything's going to be all right. And I think we do need to ask some serious questions, and I'm sure we will in the episode, but questions need to be asked now. I'll let some of the other lads jump in, but serious questions need to be asked.
It is. Where do we go from here? I mean, this is a 6-pointer. Yeah, probably. This is a 6-pointer. The fact that we're calling it a 6-pointer this early in the season is just pretty shocking. I mean, there's zero quality. To be fair, Stoke deserved the win. They won at a canter, 2-0. Probably could have been 4. I don't even think I'm questioning the effort of the players at times. They're just not good enough. Yeah. I mean, can anyone actually tell me what system we were playing? Lumping balls at a 5'9" striker. We've been doing it all season. I mean, David Moyes has had 2 weeks during international break. What's he been doing? There's no plan going forward. They're so disorganised at the back. I mean, Bournemouth put 6 past Hull. I mean, they've been in the league bloody 10 minutes. We've been in it 10 years, and they look 10 times the side of us.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really bothers me is that was a Stoke team who have really struggled this season. Like they have been on occasion really poor. And they could have had 4 or 5 goals. They could have easily had 4 or 5 goals. The defence, they look like strangers. There's no desire. There's even there's less quality. There's no invention, like you said. There's no ideas about how we're going to score a goal, how we're going to attack. We don't defend as a unit. There's no composure. There's no patience. There's just literally no promise about that team at all. I can't see that team doing anything this season. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of injuries, and I know that people are out, but there's
you can hear it. He's just exasperated.
What I'm watching is not what David Moyes is watching, and I think a lot of fans, it's starting to turn against him. And we've seen it on Twitter over the last 24 hours. Although you can argue how representative Twitter is, but there's a lot of people on there who are beginning to say, do you know what, this just isn't good enough. He's had a lot of time. And there are a lot of managers who would get more out of those players. I know they're not great players, but there are a lot of managers who would get more from them and who could at least organise and make them work harder. Because when McNair didn't get that pass from Ndong for the first goal, McNair just sort of went, threw his arms in the air, had a little saunter, and Ndong just sort of had a go at the referee and just went, that was. And then
what was he trying? Alan goes, saying that, if we're going to pick apart the game like that. When Ndong hit the ball off the referee, he did it twice. It happened once, and then it happened again a second time, and you're just thinking, why not aim for another player? Why not try something else? It's like you're kicking it off a wall. It's like there's a wall stand there, the ref's clearly not moving for you. It's just, it just seemed like every time they got hold of the ball, they had no composure. But as we said earlier, no direction. No direction at all, no real tactical plan. I was waiting for the international break, and I was hoping over that time there'd be some sort of installation of a bit more tactical awareness, a bit more of a team identity, and certainly more communication between the players. And Christ almighty, people are saying, like, can I have another international break again? But no, I wouldn't. If they looked worse than they did in the last match. Do you know what I mean?
You're right.
That time off has made them seem all the worse. I'm sick. I've got to be honest. I'm sick of it. Like, I'm really sick. Especially when 3,000 Sunderland fans travelled to Stoke. 3,000 people did that to witness that capitulation.
They're better people than I am, because they were cheering all the way.
Christ.
They were. I don't claim to be.
They're beautiful, aren't they? But it's tragic.
I don't claim to be half as good as some of those people, and they deserve so much more. And it's just such a shame, and that's why it's so frustrating, because there's so the players, the manager, the chairman, the decisions that are being made, they're not worthy. They're not worthy of it. They're not worthy of the support, and the support will keep coming, because it always does, and the club will always be that way. And I don't think anyone will want to lose that from the club, because that's what makes Sunderland so amazing, is these away followings and how brilliant we are. But at the end of it, you just think to yourself, do you know what? You don't deserve it, mate. You really, none of you deserve it, and it's so infuriating to see such good people give up their time, give up their money, and be so positive and so behind the team, and they get that. It's just disgusting.
Sorry, go on, Jim. Mate.
All right, but the whole club at the moment, barring the fans, I mean, it feels flat. Like, the players look flat. The fans, I mean, we do our best, and you just think, what's Moyes done? Like, the feel good factor from last season, we spoke about how it's disappeared. He's come in, and surely Sam Allardyce would have sat down with him, or with a bit over the phone, or a handover document or something, would have said, like, this is what we've done. This is our plan moving forward. And it looks to me like he's not looked at that. He's just gone, well, I know best. And he's spent 20 odd million on crap. Let's be honest, crap players. And after 2 games, he said we're in a relegation battle. I mean, when Sam came in, he comes in and he borders on arrogance, but I mean, his confidence and his passion, you think, I believe in him. And I'm sure the players did. They look at Sam and they go, well, he thinks we're going to get out of it. Maybe we are going to get out of it. But when David Moyes comes out after 2 games and says, we're going to be fighting a relegation battle, I mean, that's got to have an impact.
You might as well stick a proper Sunderland fan in the dressing room with them for the team.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, we're going down. We're just going down. These are all shite. Everything's shite.
You were shite, lads. Right.
What irritates me about David Moyes at the minute is, I like how real, when he said, we're going to be in a struggle, I don't think any of us thought we weren't. And to me, that was realism. It wasn't negativity at the time. But he hasn't ever gone sort of on an upward trend with his positivity. It's been, we're in a relegation battle. It's the players' fault. It's not my fault. We look good in training, but ultimately we're not good enough. He's never said it. There's been no shift in tone. It's never been, we're in a relegation battle. But look how encouraging the signs are. He hasn't. He's always been on the players' backs. And what's irritating about that is the negativity that's being bred this season. And somebody put this in either a group chat I'm in or on Twitter. They said, we're losing a whole generation of Sunderland fans because the last 5 or 6 years have just been absolute torture. And the negativity that's swallowing the club up at the minute. And I don't want to just say it's David Moyes, because it's been an issue for a few years. But David Moyes is the figurehead now and takes our flack. The negativity that's being bred at the club is killing the fans. It's killing the fan base off.
David Moyes,
I mean, his
Short's human shield.
I mean, his comments after the game yesterday, I don't know if you heard it, but he said, we had a bit of an experienced side out there today, and you're thinking to yourself, he must be standing around just thinking, just saying, well, who bought all these kids?
Yeah.
Who bought all these kids? Like, it wasn't me. Well, yeah, it was you. It was like, and even if that were, even if he's bought them, I'll run through the team, right? O'Shea and Gilabodji, 27 and 35 years old. You could argue that's a fairly reasonably experienced centre-back pairing. You've got Van Arnold and Manquillo at full-back. One's a former Liverpool Atletico full-back and played across clubs in Europe. Patrick Van Arnold's 3rd season in the Premier League, and he's been called up to the Dutch national team. The young keeper is our best player, so the most inexperienced person is the best player. The attack that he played is more experienced than he would pick if players like Januzaj were fit. So in the past, he has played less experienced attacks through choice. And he's dropped and loaned out players like Lenz who are experienced so that he could sign the likes of Januzaj and play Gooch. The two in central midfield, who he's saying are inexperienced, he bought for almost £20 million. And he's saying, oh, well, we've got this inexperienced team. Well, what did you expect? What did you expect to happen when you haven't? When he's saying at the beginning of the season, oh, the squad's very small, we need to add to the squad. Yeah. Well, if you're going to add young players, you're going to have an inexperienced team.
We're talking about... So, I mean, the goals... I just want to say for a minute, both goals yesterday, to me, they weren't quality goals. I mean, I notice Alan's getting quite a lot of praise for them, but do you get praise for kicking someone in the head when they're down? Because it's the equivalent, scoring goals like that. Do you know what I mean? Like Djilabodji, for that first goal, the ball's coming towards him. Now, he could do what a centre-back's supposed to do. He could leap in the air and use his head to guide it away from his goal. But instead, he raises his leg. He raises his leg away from the ball, hits air, and then watches Joel Allen just gently glides it past Pickford, which is, and I've got to say this about Pickford, he's taken so much stick for this. Like so many people on social media and things like that. Why are we playing Pickford? Start Mika. Why would you? Mika looks like a Blue Peter presenter for a start. He looks freaky. He weirds me out, mate. But on top of that, Jordan Pickford, he's a quality keeper. Do you know what I mean? It's not his fault that we haven't had a clean sheet. It's the people in front of him, the people around him. The second goal as well. What was it? Billy Jones got megged on a half-turn, half-volley, scuffed shot, really. And Pickford's view of that ball was completely blocked by the defenders who were in utterly the wrong place and yet did nothing about the ball apart from turn around and watch it as it went past them. I'm sick of that. I'm sick of the constant errors, the lack of passion. Oh, God. I'm sick of it all.
The injuries.
The injuries, as well. There we go. What we have to now,
Moyes.
10?
On the injuries, I think it's 12 now or something. I mean, Moyes comes out, he says, it's not training. Rubbish.
Do you know,
rubbish.
Doesn't that mean
you can't get that many...
Technically, we could feel like a disabled football team right now. We've got enough players walking wounded to do something like that. You just look... I mean, Joe Allen and what's his name, Arnautovic, they ran that game. I mean, Arnautovic made us look. I mean, Manquillo. I mean, he looked. It was on his debut. I think it was it Southampton away. I mean, I thought he looked just really, really decent player. I thought, we got a good fullback on our hands here. From then on, oh dear, that lad. I mean, his positional sense is awful. It's just awful, and you just think Moyes keeps going back to this. They're inexperienced, right? There's been plenty of inexperienced sides in this league who've done well because they're organised and because they're young, they're hungry and they're passionate. We're not organised and we're not hungry, and that comes from the manager, in my opinion.
You know what? I look back to and this. Some people might think this is a ridiculous comparison, but I look back to when Alex Ferguson was the Man United manager. Sometimes he won games with ease against the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, with what would technically be his second string. And the reason they must do well is because everybody knows their job, everybody knows how to play together as a team in the set formation with the set tactics that have already been decided, and everybody's comfortable in what they're doing. Sunderland, we look a bit like headless chickens, in all honesty. We don't know how we want to play. Do we want to play wide? Do we want to play through the middle? It seems like we want to play with width, but we don't have any wide players, which boggles the mind a little bit. The fact that Dong's kind of farmed out onto the right-hand side for the last couple of games really serves to show just how weak we are in squad depth. And I do think the buck has to stop with not necessarily just David Moyes, but club management, because we obviously didn't strengthen well enough to bring in enough quality players. We spent £13 million. I know we discussed this last week, but we spent £13 million on Ndong when apparently we could have had Jan and Vila for half the price. We buy Paddy McNair and Donald Love for something like £7 million for two, in all honesty, very average young players right now. Moyes surely coming in must have realised, right, I just need to get an experienced squad out there who know how to play in the Prem, will scrape by and will try again to sort of battle for safety. And we haven't done that, have we?
Well, he did though, didn't he?
He got Pinar and Anachibi.
Keep the team together for the last Sorry, keep the team together from last season.
Sorry, James, you're trying to say. Let him say.
It's just to keep the team together from last season. I mean, he spent money on players who he keeps calling inexperienced. Then, yeah, I know DeAndre Yedlin's not the best player in the world, but I mean, you could have got him for what, 3.5, 4 million. You could have got Jan Villa. You probably could have added a couple more players for what he spent, and you could have kept the nucleus of that decent side we had from the back end of last season. And instead, he's gone and torn it up, and he's brought in people like Januzaj, who couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag, and he's brought in 2 youngsters who just. It's not fair to play them in this kind of environment because that's not going to be conducive to developing their career.
But you see, even if we'd got in Yedlin, and I firmly believe that we should have stuck with the squad, that we should have been as consistent as possible and tried to build on. Because last season we think it was a success and it was very, it was very promising, very good, but the job wasn't done. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't completed, and it's as though the club have thought, oh, fantastic, we had a really good 5 months. It doesn't matter that Allardyce is leaving. We can now basically start a dynasty. Do you know what I mean? We can start like the Moyes dynasty of like British young players. And you think, well, if you're trying to build it for the future without a care of what you need right now, without the realities of what's going to happen this season, it's obvious what's going to happen if you don't have that kind of core of players who can come in and take the pressure off the younger players who you're trying to bring through. Because what he's basically done is said to players like Ndong and Watmore and Manquillo and Gooch and players like that, he said, and even McNair, he said, right, well, you've got to be it. If we're going to stay up, these players are going to have to be the players who keep us up. And I'm not a football manager, but that doesn't seem to me to be the best way to boost a player's confidence and to help them develop. To really put that kind of pressure on them.
Sorry to interrupt, but it does. It's just what you said there. It seems like his preparation for coming to Sunderland was to actually simulate a season with Sunderland on Football Manager and see what would happen with Love and McNair and Ndong. And he's seen Ndong banging some quality goal. Have you noticed that Ndong hasn't taken a shot since he's played? And for someone who, I know the obligatory YouTube video, as we say, when we signed him, everyone was looking for some information on him just to see what he was like. And he was scoring some cracking goals from like 35 yards and things like that. And he struck me then as this. He was described actually as aggressive. He was described as temperamental, fair enough. But he was also described as like a box-to-box midfielder who would actually like attack-minded. Do you know what I mean? He's not a central defensive midfielder, but he plays like one. I don't think
anyone knows their roles. I don't think anyone really knows who's going to play where, which midfielders are sitting, which midfielders are going to be box to box, who's going to support Defoe. I don't think anyone knows. But, yesterday, I think Rodwell was more of a sort of a defensive shield in front of the centre backs rather than someone like McNair or because you look at those players and Rodwell's we've been told Rodwell could be a sitting midfielder, an attacking midfielder, a centre back. Same with McNair, and you think, well, it's obvious that he doesn't know which of these players fit in where, how to balance them out, how to get that sort of that balance in the midfield where players know their jobs, where players have a position. And he's trying different people and some of it's forced on him by injuries, but some of it has to be the fact that he's not preparing the players properly and he's not organising them properly.
He's not being decisive, Callum. He's not. Sam was so decisive in what he did. He was like, everyone knew their jobs, as you just said. Everyone knew their jobs. And we got on with it. With Davy Moyes, I just have this feeling where, players are looking around at the rest of the players that are on the pitch, and they're looking for someone else to take responsibility at the moment. Someone like McNair is looking across and is looking at Jack Rodwell. I mean, for one, we've 31 games he's now started for Sunderland and we haven't won. I mean, I'm sorry, that can't be a coincidence. No. There's something wrong there. I mean, lads, anyone who knows me knows I have a bit of a disdain for Jack Rodwell anyway. But that lad is just...
I need to know when we're going to just cut our losses on him and when he's just going to
rubbish.
Because it's been a ridiculous couple of years having him, and constantly, every time he's on the telly, being told by the commentators that he used to be so good at coming up through Everton, you know what I mean? Yeah. And how Ross Barkley-esque he is, and can this new Sunderland manager get the best out? No one can get the best out of him. He's damaged goods. He's just he's not
mental.
used to us anymore.
It's in his head, I reckon, Damian. It's in his head because he doesn't go. He never puts on a full sprint, and I think that's because he's worried he snap his hamstrings.
Yeah.
He won't go full on into a tackle, and it's because he's had so many bad injuries. And you feel for the lad there, but there's no fight in him. When he came in, he said, "Oh, I want to fight my way back in the England team." I mean, England are bad, but they're not that bad.
Yeah, I know. Right, well,
but just trying to play devil's advocate for 1 second, because there's going to be people who are like sort of saying we're just talking a load of crap, to be honest, and just trying to address the flip side of it. There's people who are going to say like, oh well, David Moyes and Sunderland, we had a disrupted pre-season. That's fair enough. Don't get me wrong, but this has been season after season. We haven't learned from our mistakes. So even if it isn't David Moyes' fault, he didn't get a pre-season. He still had a lot of time. We still had 2 international breaks. He still got to decide who he wanted to sign. So ultimately, now, 8 games into a season, you would think even if you didn't have as much time as you'd wanted, you would be able to suss things out in, 3.5, 4 months?
Especially, yeah, definitely, when you consider that he's one of the longest-serving Premier League managers. On top of that, it's not like he's lacking the experience of having an injury-prone season or a bad transfer window or something like that. It's not like he's...
But look, if you look at what someone like Eddie Howe can do without the experience, and you look at some of these managers who have that kind of energy, that hunger, that desire. For me, I don't care about his CV. I don't care about what he did at Everton. I don't care about Man United. I don't care that he got that job or that he was Fergie's chosen successor or whatever, because I care about the guy who's managing the club now. I care about what he's doing, how he's talking, how the team is set up, the players he's signing now. I don't care that, in 2005 he signed Phil Jagielka for a bargain. I don't care. Do you know what I mean? I just what I want is someone who's going to come in and organise the players and get that kind of drive and passion. And he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have the energy and the optimism and the passion that I'm looking for from a manager. And he looks like he is bitter. He just looks like he can't understand how he's in this position, how he's agree. Carrying this bag. Do you know what I mean?
You're spot on, Callum.
Sorry, you can carry on talking in a second, James, because this will be relevant. Just some questions we've got from Twitter. One of them, I wasn't going to read it out because I feel like we'd already covered it in other episodes, but since we're talking so much about it, we've got one from Gareth who says, we've had a shitload of managers, most bad. Do you agree Moyes seems to be one of those that oozes bad feelings? And yes, I do feel that. I think we all feel that way.
Well, the thing is, I said in previous podcasts that we've got to stick with David Moyes, and I'm trying, lads. I'm really trying to stay positive and stick with David Moyes. But if you forget about the last 6 years, I know it's hard, but if you forget about the 6 years, you take David Moyes' reign at Sunderland in isolation, you sack him. It's as simple as that. He's lost. It looks to me he's lost the dressing room. They don't look like they're fighting. He had a very poor transfer window. You probably give him 2 or 3 more games. If he hasn't turned it around, you probably get rid of him. But we have this horrendous stigma of sacking managers from the past 6 years, which is making us think, oh, but should we stick with him? But I'm starting to think, is he a manager that he peaked? His last few years at Everton, was that his peak? And he's on the downward, a bit like maybe Martin O'Neill was when we got him. We got him 5 years too late. Is Moyes, we've said in previous episodes, is he damaged goods actually? Is he all he's cracked up to be? Because to me, maybe he's too old school. Maybe this old school approach of, bollocking players and being very stern, maybe that doesn't work now. And he's not developed with the times. He's not kind of developed with the game, because the game has changed so much in the last 15 years. And I'm starting to think maybe his approach to management isn't conducive to the modern egos, which is probably so fragile.
I agree, Jim. And you know what? I think we were so lucky with Sam Allardyce, because he is old school, Sam Allardyce, don't get me wrong. He didn't play the most beautiful football. He called tiki-taka football bollocks, a load of bollocks. The guy wasn't really... He knew who he was, but he believed in cryotherapy. He believed in sports science. That was like the forefront of everything he did at a club. And he was willing to be conducive and malleable and change with what the club needed. And we talked the last few weeks about the amount of injuries we had. We didn't seem to have any with Sam Allardyce. And I know we bring it up all the time, but to have almost a full squad of players out injured at the moment, like you said, suggests something is seriously wrong behind the scenes. Now, we didn't have that with Allardyce, and I think that just totally proves the point that we were so lucky that we got someone like Sam Allardyce who maybe has stayed under the radar the whole time. Like you're saying, David Moyes got the grand job and failed at it and hasn't ever recovered from it. We were so lucky with Sam, and we need somebody like that again. Maybe you don't necessarily need his pedigree, but you need somebody who has some different idea on how things are going to work.
Yeah, the thing is, there's been a lot of talk about how many managers eventually we'll have to settle with a manager. Eventually we'll have to say, right, well, this is the manager that we're going for. And I'm absolutely fine with sticking with a manager. I think that would be good for the club. I think you need stability, and the longer you can have a manager, the better, obviously, because you get that continuity. But that doesn't mean that he's that manager. That doesn't mean that this is the one we stick on. Everyone's like, oh, well, yeah, but, we've had 8 in 5 years, and this is the 9th. And you think, well, that would be the 9th. And you think, well, so what?
Yeah, I agree exactly with that, actually, Callum. I completely agree with that.
Who said that 8 is that arbitrary number where you just stop?
Maybe it was wrong to sack some of those managers and replace them so quickly, but that doesn't mean that doing it this time would still be a bad idea.
Well, it's like dating like 8 horrible people and saying, oh well, I'm in my late 20s. I'll have to get married at some point, so I may as well.
This sounds a bit personal, doesn't it?
I may as well marry the 9th one, even though she's worse than the previous 8.
So when are you getting married, Callum?
Moving on, but the right time to commit is when you found the right one, not when you go, oh well, you know what, it's about time.
Yeah,
it's about time. If sacking managers is sometimes the right answer, and sometimes you get the appointments wrong, and you have to admit it. Whether it's the first, it's the first manager after a 20-year stint like at Man United, or whether he's the 8th manager in 5 years. It's not logical to say that because he's the 8th or 9th manager in 5 years, that means we have to stick with him. It just doesn't make sense. It's not relevant.
Well, we've got another question.
It depends on his.
Jake, I mean, this one has to be sort of taken individually, I suppose. Jake says, "Do you think Moyes will be sacked by Christmas?" I suppose that's more a matter of opinion than anything else.
Yes, and I think Big Sam will be back.
You think so? You did say that actually the other day in the chat, didn't you?
Yeah. I honestly think that the FA investigation will just say that he made an immoral choice. It wasn't illegal, which, if you watch all the footage, it really didn't. Like, I understand it's a lot of money to turn down to go to the Middle East and talk a load of crap, but like he says the whole way through, like, oh, I can't commit to this. Like, I would like to, but I need to make sure that it runs by the FA. He says, I'll run it by the bosses or something like that. And I just think that I don't think he left us on good terms. Like, it was very abrupt, his exit, and I don't think it was necessarily planned as well as we think it was. But I think Ellis Short's like a man, I don't know, I say this, I could be totally wrong, but he's a businessman and he's a billionaire, and he got there by making correct business decisions. Sunderland has been a big blip on his radar so far. He's really struggled. However, he must look back and think the most secure we've seen, and where there seemed to be some longevity in our Premiership existence, basically, was with Sam Allardyce. He bought us in bargains. If we'd sold Coney in the summer, we would have stood to have made a giant profit from him.
When you consider as well on that note that Coney and Allardyce share the same agent. So it's his connections as well, those sort of things.
Yep,
I mean,
really
the very fact that he talks so much bollocks all the time, that the way his personality is, has led to a network that he can call on and easily pick up these bugs. He did it for West Ham. You know what I mean? He did it but he's done it for every club that he's been at. He's brought in these quality
it's not
players.
Just that it's not just that. It's not just his connection. It's when you're saying about it's his ego and the fact that he's so confident and he has that swagger. He takes all the flack. Because when you have a press conference with him and you think, oh, what a knob, like the way he's going on, he deflects all the attention away from his players. Yeah. They happily get on with their job, and everybody thinks, oh, there's Big Sam being an absolute Burke again. Nobody mentions the players at this point. Yeah. Whereas you got someone like David Moyes and the negativity, it's just creating this like toxic atmosphere at the minute.
It's insufferable. Poisonous in the press room, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't stand watching it.
You say the question. What was the question? Was would he be sacked by Christmas?
Yeah.
I'd like to think if it doesn't go, if the next few results don't go well, I'd like to think he'd walk myself, but he's not going to.
No.
And that means, is Ellis Short going to be willing to pay him off of a 4-year contract? And I don't think he would. It's not like with Sam where he was given, was it 18 months, I think, when he joined, or with Dick was given a year. These were all small contracts. When you're talking about 4 years on, I can't imagine he's on a pittance. To me, I don't think he will sack him by Christmas. I think the only way David Moyes won't be here is if he leaves of his own accord, or they come to some mutual agreement. But the next few games,
that's a really horrifying concept. That is, James. I wish you hadn't said that. Now, I just like, is he really going to be bending us over a barrel over this contract? Because that's got me worried.
Yeah, I think it obviously depends on results and on how things look. I think if we haven't won a game by the next international break, he's got to be under pressure. It all depends, on whether this is part of, we've heard about this long-term plan, which is it's a very easy way to swat away any criticism to say, it's all part of the long-term plan. So it looks, like yesterday, it looks like not having any plan is part of a plan, which is quite strange. But, there's got to come a time when Ellis Short makes a decision, and for me, it can't come soon enough. My views on him are very well documented, and I don't have any love or passion for David Moyes at all. But with Allardyce, there'd be a few things that I would you'd want to make sure before he came back. You'd want to make sure there was nothing going to hang over him. There was no pending investigations or charges or anything like that could cost us later in the season. But also, after he's gone to England, he's had his dream job. It's ended like that. If he comes back to Sunderland, you hope maybe, like with Moyes, you hope he hasn't lost that kind of passion. He hasn't, that he's not bitter, that he's up for it again. And that would be a major part of it as well, because the main problem that we had with Moyes was we didn't interview him. We went to him and we said, "This is the job. We want you." Do you know what I mean? And we didn't go and say, "Is he right for the club? Is he a good fit?" We just went, "Oh well, he's a manager who's been here and done that, and he's got a good CV, and so we'll offer him the job." He looks like an ambitious appointment. He looks more ambitious than if you go and get Burnley's manager or if you go and get Birmingham's manager.
Well, he did, didn't he? He did before, but now he's starting to seem like a lot less ambitious than we actually hoped for.
Well, that's the thing, but it's a lazy appointment. It's the appearance of ambition. It's the appearance of ambition, and for me, I would go for Gary Rowett at Birmingham if I was to replace David Moyes. That would, I would have preferred Sean Dyche, but I don't think he'll leave. He's already at a Premier League club. Gary Rowett, he might leave, but again, he'll cost money to come in, and we'd have to pay off Moyes' contract. So there's a lot of things that have to happen.
We could do an entire episode on the details of such things. I suppose. We've got one last question, and it's probably quite apt actually. Jesse wants to know how long it'll take us to get back to the Premier League.
You know what? I'm going to jump in on this because this is my opinion. Honestly, anybody who's out there who feels free to shoot us down, do so. But this season for me has just been preparation for a relegation. Yep. We stayed up last season and we secured TV money this year, which theoretically could wipe out the debt that has crippled us. We go down, we get parachute payments for the next 3 years that not only help wipe out that debt, but they actually give us a pot of money to actually use. I think Ellis Short's a businessman, like I said, he's a billionaire. Looking at the long-term picture, he must be thinking, how can I get rid of the debt? And in his mind, for so long, it must have been, right, I just need to be in the 2016, 2017 Premier League to get the money, to wipe off the debt, put us into a sound position. And from there, there's endless amounts of possibilities. Do I want us to bounce straight back up? Not at all, because then I think we go back to becoming a yo-yo club and we put ourselves back into that position of spending money on absolute crap. Do we try and gain some kind of identity over the next 2 or 3 years, dropping down a division, bringing some positivity back, learning or developing a system that not only the fans are enjoying more so than humping a ball 40 yards up to 5'9" Jermaine Defoe, but also getting the young players who he threw into the mire this year and watched them struggle, give them some time to impress in a lower division, come back up with a core of younger players and do well within the next 5-6 years would be my dream of how it would work. But there's no guarantees, is there? There's no guarantees.
No, I think going down would be an absolute disaster myself. I think you just got to look at the amount of really decent, good history, traditional football clubs in the Football League at the moment. I think if we go down the season, I think it would be pretty catastrophic. I don't agree that we've signed players and it's almost in the plan to accept relegation this year, because I don't think David Moyes would have agreed to that. I just think he's been poor.
But the trouble with it is, though, it's like you don't think he would agree to that, but at the same time, what has he agreed to then? Because obviously, if his decision making is very clearly flawed, which it is, then what would be the purpose? Did he? That would imply that he's delusional. That he came in and he actually thought that Paddy McNair and Donald Love and people like that, Yanazai, would get us to, because we were always talking about mid-table stability, weren't we? So he didn't bring in those players to fight fires. Do you know what I mean? He didn't bring Paddy McNair to make that impact when we're down in the relegation zone scrapping at it. Do you know what I mean?
It would certainly make more sense. The signings would make a tiny bit more sense if you knew that almost built into the plan was an acceptance that this year was the year that we go down.
I think that sorry to interrupt you again, mate, but on that note, the 4 or 5 year contract he's in as well, if he's coming out and the first thing he's saying is we're going to be in a relegation scrap, and he's signed a 4-year contract, and he's clearly got no optimism or hope that, or any delusions, as we say, that we're actually going to stay up, then I think, to me, definitely he has accepted the fact that he might be a championship manager in the next year.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put anything past people in football who are in charge of football clubs. I wouldn't presume to second guess just what people involved in football are willing to put fans through, and so it could absolutely be part of the plan that they go down. They could have this idea, and they could be sort of trying to lessen the blow on fans while also kind of retaining this facade that we're actually trying to compete in the Premier League. So it would make some sense. I have some difficulty believing that that's the case, because I don't think David Moyes would have signed on for that. Something in me makes me think that he believes he is actually above that. It's not long he was at Man United. I don't think he believes himself to be so far down the pecking order that now all he's good for is taking a team into the Championship. And his negativity, he was negative last season when he turned the job down. Now we've got 2 points from 8 games. He turned the job down when we had 3 points from 8 games, saying we were already down. So David Moyes is probably at his massive house this weekend saying to his wife, I gave it my best shot, love, but, they're already down now. So that's it, 3 points, 2 points from 8 games,
Wouldn't that mean that he must have some sort of relegation clause or something like that? I don't know. We could talk about this all day long, I suppose. Just a quick one then, because we're going to be wrapping up soon. West Ham next week. I watched them scrape a 1-1 draw yesterday. I don't know how I could manage to watch another football match after the Sunderland one, but I did. And I tell you what, even though their defence is poor, I'm looking at Payet, I'm looking at Lanzini and Antonio, and I'm looking at our defence, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, like 4, 5, 6 goal thriller for West Ham. Do you know what I mean? I honestly, if we're only attacking with Defoe, I can't see how he's going to get, even though they've got their defensive frailties, I can't see how our attack is going to push forward towards beating them by outscoring them.
I don't know. I mean, West Ham are not.
What's that?
They're so upset. Damo's so upset. He forgot West Ham won yesterday 1-0.
Did they? Did they win?
Yeah.
Christ. Oh,
they won 1-0 against Crystal
Palace. I was out of it. I could have sworn Crystal Palace scored in like the first 10 minutes. Oh no, that was that was against us, wasn't it? No, it was our game. Either way, regardless, my point still stands. They were pretty bloody pants, and I still think they did a crap job. And their defence is so frail. There were many opportunities for them to draw or lose. Sorry, I must have been completely out of it. Man. Christ,
you would hope that like this isn't West Ham turning a corner just in time to play us. It would be typical that you look at our fixtures and you'd be like, oh, we're playing Stoke and West Ham, two teams that are struggling, and then we play them back into form because that is standard Sunderland. Mm-hmm. I'd look at someone like that Simone Zaza, who's been so poor all season. It's got Zaza brace written all over
with his little tippy tappy feet.
Exactly.
We're sure Andy Carroll's not just going to face a late.
The thing is, with our defence, you'll have all the time in the world. Zaza would just take little tiny steps all the way up. As a cross comes in, tiny little step in the back of the net. But they've got game changers, haven't they? That's the thing. They've got those players. And you mentioned them, Antonio and Zaza. I hear is good. Payet, Lanzini, and it's kind of fortunate, I guess, that Cresswell's injured because I really rate Cresswell. He's not injured. He's banned, isn't he? Yeah, but he's they've got these players who can really, really make a difference. Create something, and we seem to be offering a charitable service to go around and start people's seasons.
We said it last week. Didn't we? We said Stoke are going to be sitting there in the pubs all this week, rubbing their hands, thinking, lads, don't worry. The game's coming up that changes our season, and sure enough, they win 2-0.
3 points.
All the West Ham fans, same thing this week. They'll be sitting there thinking, Sunderland, absolute load of crap up there. We'll come away with 3 points, and we'll have 2 wins from 2 games. We'll get a bit of momentum. The likes of Lanzini, Payet, Antonio, and so we'll have a bit of confidence going into the next few games. And for us, we ended last week saying, this is the game judge us by. We've got Arsenal. We'll think that's a throwaway result. We won't get a result. We'll manage a draw, paper over the cracks next week, and then be defeated at Burnley and Hull and be back in the same position.
I actually can't fault that from Tom. I think he pretty much summed that up. Which is probably a good job then, actually, because, that's about all we've got time for. Well, yeah, thanks as ever for joining us this week. Don't forget to subscribe on the Acast app on your mobiles or on your PC, and of course on iTunes. We look forward to seeing you again or speaking again around you somewhere next week. Because I can't see any of you, I swear, I promise. This is the Roker Rapport. Signing off.